What's up, guys? I got a little update. There's a care plan in place, and I've also been getting some questions of like what's going on from some folks that haven't caught up lately. And I've made a lot of updates, and it's hard to pinpoint one that'll help them understand where we are specifically. So I'm going to do a quick recap of how we got to where we are, and then tell you what the plan is moving forward. So they called earlier, the infectious disease doctors called earlier and said, this is what we suspect we're going to do. These are the dates. So first off, thank you to everyone just loving on us and sending positive, reinforcement prayers. Everything you guys are doing. Some of you are just absolute superstars and have just won my heart over, and it's appreciated. It's very much appreciated. I'm in the cafeteria, so I'm looking around because it's kind of awkward. There's people. I don't like people walking up on me while I'm doing these updates. But so let's back up to like June. Or even farther back for a quick second. So Mandy has a disease called von Hippel-Lindau syndrome, VHL. You can Google VHL, Google VHL strong. There's a bunch of hashtags. You are not alone, VHL, things like that, and you'll find stuff about VHL and what it is. And in a nutshell, it is a missing. It's a missing piece in the genes. I'm not saying that right, but it's just Wes's oversimplification of it. There's a missing piece in the little link of the DNA that, and because of it, they grow mostly benign tumors anywhere where it's very vascular. Most of the time, the tumors that they grow are hemangioblastoma, which is a blood vessel tumor, or blood tumor, I guess, however you want to say it. But that's what it is. So those tumors grow, for whatever reason. That's that missing gene that causes it. So not only that, depending on where they grow is the problem. They may be benign, they may not be cancerous, but they grow in places that they're not supposed to be, like in the brain. And the thing about it is, your brain only has so much room in it. Your skull, your head, only has so much room in it. Your brain sits in there. There's fluid that has to flow around. There's veins, from your body. It's got to pump blood to it. All that stuff has to work. There's neurons firing in your spinal cord, and there's a lot happening in the head. So you can imagine when tumors start to grow where they're not supposed to, it starts pushing other things out of the way, and it causes issues. The thing about the brain is, if you could just imagine, if you had a human brain in front of you working alive, just taking your finger and poking in a spot could potentially do some major damage. So then when a tumor grows, it starts pushing the brain around. So the tumor is pushing against it, and then the tumor is pushing it into another part of the brain or up against the skull, And Mandy's problem in the past has been mostly like hydrocephalus, or this time at least, it was last time too. All of her major tumors that she's had removed up to this point have the problem that they've caused is hydrocephalus. And what that means is the ventricles in the brain create fluid up top, and that's the fluid for the brain to carry things around, just like blood inside the brain. And then it drains out and becomes spinal fluid. And what hydrocephalus is a buildup of that fluid on the brain. So Mandy's problem has been the ventricles have been ballooned up because the pathway to drain, into the spine has been closed off because of a tumor growing, pushing up against that area and pinching it off. Just Google it. Google hydrocephalus and you'll see it. All right, so that's how we got here. So back in May, June timeframe, Mandy and Sarah both started getting tested. We knew they both had tumors, but turned out they had some tumors that we knew were there, now needed some attention for the most part. Sarah had one that was a surprise. So we planned it out, and July, August, and September was the time frame. So Mandy was going to have Mandy ended up having three tumors that needed attention. The first surgery was going to actually be 2 procedures. One was to make a new port for drainage of that fluid. The second one was to get the biggest tumor. All right, that was in July. So that happened, and before the surgery happened, ended up taking her to the ER. Hydrocephalus built up faster than anticipated. We stayed in the ER 5 days. We were in ICU for 5 days with a hole drilled in her head, draining fluid off. And then she had her surgery, and then we stayed an additional 5 or 6 days. I think it was 10, 11 days. I can't remember. So after that, though, it went pretty well. She healed pretty well, came home without a hitch. Went in for Sarah's. Sarah had her surgery. Her surgery went well. After surgery, we would bring her home. She was doing well, like everything went as planned, but then she developed meningitis, aseptic meningitis, which means that it was just the blood from the surgery inside here had kind of agitated the meninge or whatever and just flared it up, meningitis. So it wasn't an outside infection, it wasn't staph or anything like that. It was just the fact that inside her head said, hey, there's some stuff I don't like. All right, so now we have Mandy coming back for her last surgery, which was 2 tumors. One was a little more critical than the other one, but while he's in there, he was going to knock it out. She'd been under a lot of stress. We actually weren't feeling good about it. I actually tried to, we discussed it. I actually tried to talk her out of even doing it. Let's push it another week. But just timing of everything, it just wasn't working out that way. So we ended up going in on time. She has her surgery. The main one, the critical one, ended up taking far longer than expected. She was under anesthesia for over 12 hours. She came out of anesthesia and she looked rough. And they still had the breathing tube on her because she'd been under so long. I'm going through this fast. Anyway, after she went to recovery sent her to the neuro floor. As soon as she got to the neuro floor, and I got to get in there and spend some time with her, there was something wrong. I knew something was wrong. Nurse agreed. Called neuro. Turns out she's having a stroke. Rushed her right back into the OR. She was dying. Like, we watched her stop breathing in the room, in the neuro room. So she goes back in to the OR. She comes back out. We go to ICU afterwards. Major incision this time. It was radically different. And then, following that were many accounts of her, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, to where, right up to she got meningitis, staph meningitis, which is bad, right? That could kill you, quickly. It was just many things, I was convinced it's like she's going to die. Like, every time I turned around, it was something else. I was scared to leave the room or even go to sleep, because every time I did, I would wake up and something was wrong, and it was always critical. So here we are, about 3 weeks in now. So she ended up building up to it. So the stroke that she had caused a lot of issues, caused a lot of swelling. They went back in, did what they had to do, absolutely required. But now she's got fluid buildup in a different area, like behind her incision, to where they did the incision. And it was actually leaking out of her sewn up incision at one point, like pouring out, like a hole in a balloon of water. They did a spinal tap, put a drain in her spine, and have been draining that off ever since, while putting her back on the meningitis medicine. So she had meningitis, they knew it, they put her on antibiotics. They were actually transitioning her to go home and thought they had it under control, and it flared up again, and that's when they got the drain tube in from the back. So anyway, that's where we are today. So infectious disease called, and they said, they told me earlier the plan was that we're going to continue on the broad spectrum IV antibiotics until the 11th. So we won't do the shunt. Oh, she needs a shunt. Shunt is a drain from the head. It goes down to like the stomach area, dumps it out, and your body just does what it needs to do with it. We didn't want to shunt because that is another surgery, but at this point it's required. She'll die without it. Hydrocephalus will kill her. But I'm forgetting some stuff. But she's going to keep the drain in, be on antibiotics until the 11th, which is next Tuesday. Today's Thursday, I think. Wednesday. Today's Wednesday, the 5th. So she'll be on it till the 11th. Remind you, we came in here on the 16th of September. But yeah, she'll be the 11th. No sooner than the 11th will they do the shunt. Once they do the shunt, she'll continue, I think they said a 3-day IV antibiotic regimen, and then they'll transition her to oral antibiotics, kind of transitioning to go home. At the same time, she had began rehab before the meningitis flared back up. And they're going to put her back in the inpatient rehab while she's here, and looking to the following, the 11th, the 18th, I think they said. The 18th is like the targeted go home date. So they're thinking by the 18th, everything will be under control and she'll be prepped and able to go home. So that's the plan. So what I need you to pray is that nothing else goes wrong. Nothing else goes wrong. We need the surgery to go well. We don't need it. They've been giving her medicine to keep her from, throwing another blood clot and having another stroke. Those of you who I'm catching up, there will be long-term effects, but for the moment, she's back. She's walking pretty well. Her motor skills are pretty well. She's able to feed herself, things like that. Yeah, so just continue to pray, and that's the plan. That is the update for today, and I hope that caught everybody up to speed. I forgot some things, but let me just say this. There was like 4 or 5 different episodes during this session to where she almost died. I can't remember all of them in this story. I'll have to sit down and bullet point this out, because by the time we get out of here, it's going to be a month that we are in the hospital under critical care. So just continue to pray for her, and pray for her mental state and her emotional state. She is she's been off Dilaudid now for almost like 18 hours, and she kind of got good and sober earlier and started realizing, looking in the mirror, realizing her hair, how much has been shaved, and she is very upset. It's heartbreaking, but I told her she's beautiful and it'll grow back, and as long as I got her with me, the hair is no big deal, which obviously she said, well, that's easy for you to say, but but that's the thing. So just pray for those things. I'm going to shut up. This is a 13-minute video now. Thanks for everything. Love you guys, and I'll keep you posted.